There's a moment when your eyes meet hers for the first time. You feel that electric pulse, that split second of real connection that seems to stop time. The bar noise fades. Conversations around you become a distant murmur. You know perfectly well that you have about 3 seconds to act, to say something, to start that conversation that could change everything. Most men freeze in that instant. They start overthinking, calculating what to say, how to stand, what line to use. They try to impress, to prove their worth, to sell themselves as if they were a product on display. And when they finally approach, they do so with such an obvious needy energy that she can sense it from yards away. The result, immediate, polite, but definitive rejection. But there's another path, one that goes completely against everything you've been taught about attraction and seduction. A silent path that requires no memorized lines, complicated techniques, or transforming yourself into someone you're not. In the next 28 minutes, I'm going to reveal the psychological mechanism Machiavelli discovered 5 centuries ago, which works with surgical precision in the context of modern attraction. At 8 minutes, you'll understand the fatal mistake 97% of men make that dooms them to rejection before they even open their mouths. At 15 minutes, you'll master the exact technique applied in 3 real-life scenarios. At 22 minutes, you'll have the complete system that generates psychological addiction in 48 hours or less. True power never makes noise. Real magnetism is silent. If this has already piqued your curiosity, like this now, and let's continue. Think of magnetism as the perfect metaphor. Most believe that to attract, you need to constantly emit signals, shine brighter, make more noise than the rest. But true magnetism doesn't beg for attention. It silently demands it. It doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't convince, it magnetizes. And that invisible force is precisely what we're going to build today, step by step. Let me explain exactly where the fundamental problem modern man faces in the game of seduction lies. We live in an age of over-information and over-stimulation. The average man has seen more perfect female bodies in one day than his grandfathers saw in their entire lives. Dating apps have created a sexual marketplace where competition is fierce and seemingly endless. And in this context, the desperate response emerges. Do more, show more, say more. The common man believes he needs to impress, stand out, excel at all costs. So he talks incessantly about his achievements, his job, his possessions. He shows photos, tells anecdotes designed to demonstrate value, tries to shine with forced wit and charisma. The result? She nods politely while her eyes scan the room, looking for an exit. But the strategic man does the exact opposite. He creates spaces of intentional silence, asks questions that reveal without exposing, maintains a presence that doesn't beg for validation. The result, she leans forward, intrigued by the mystery she can't easily decipher. What we're facing is much deeper than simple pickup techniques. It's a complete distortion of what authentic attraction means in a world that has lost the ability to truly connect. The psychological error has deep roots. Since childhood, we've been programmed to seek external approval, to measure our worth based on the reactions we provoke. This constant need for validation becomes an invisible addiction that sabotages any possibility of genuine attraction. Every time you try to impress a woman, you're sending a devastating subconscious message. My worth depends on your approval, and nothing extinguishes female desire faster than a man begging for validation. Think of it like a flawed magnet. A normal magnet has 2 poles, positive and negative, that create a powerful magnetic field that naturally attracts. But when your need for approval is too strong, it's like a magnet that has lost its polarity. No matter how hard you try, you simply don't generate any attraction. In fact, the harder you try, the faster you push her away. The common man sees rejection as personal, an evaluation of his inherent worth. He gets depressed, frustrated, blames women or the system. The strategic man understands that rejection is simply information about an energetic pattern that didn't resonate, and he adjusts his internal frequency, not his external behavior. Perhaps you found yourself in that situation where you finally got the number of someone you were interested in, sent carefully crafted messages, planned every reply, only to watch the conversation slowly die with increasingly shorter responses until the devastating scene. Or maybe you remember that moment on a date, passionately talking about something you're excited about, only to realize she was discreetly checking her phone under the table. Or that time you thought everything was going well, but when you suggested a second date, The famous phrase, "You're a nice guy, but I only see you as a friend," appeared. Or when it finally seemed like you had connected with someone special, but after a few weeks, she simply lost interest, without any clear explanation. It's like being in a game where everyone knows the rules but you. Everyone seems to move you like an invisible pawn on a board you can't see. The truth no one dares to tell you is that the harder you try to impress, the less you impress. The more you chase, the more they run from you. And here's the hidden cost few recognize. Every time you try too hard to attract, you don't just lose that specific opportunity. You're reinforcing a neurological behavioral pattern that keeps you trapped in a cycle of constant rejection. You're literally training your brain for failure, creating neural connections that associate romantic interaction with anxiety, effort, and eventual disappointment. The average man lives in a constant state of emotional scarcity, always hungry for female validation, always a little desperate even when he tries to hide it. The magnetic man operates from a state of internal abundance, a source of validation that doesn't depend on external results or temporary approvals. But identifying the problem is only the first step. Now I'm going to show you exactly what to do, step by step, in 3 situations you'll face this week that can completely transform your romantic reality if you apply what you're about to learn. The core technique we're going to master is called the magnetic void. In essence, it involves creating a space of strategic silence that acts like a gravitational force. First, you establish a minimal initial connection that generates curiosity, not impression. This creates an opening in her field of attention. Then, you introduce an intentional void, a pause, a silence, a question that lingers. This void generates a psychological tension that she feels the need to fill. Then, you hold that space with total presence, without anxiety or rush. The result is that she begins to emotionally invest, to reveal more, to feel intrigued. Finally, you observe how her body language changes. She leans toward you, her pupils dilate, she touches her hair, and you calibrate your emotional response, never giving more energy than you receive. Most try to fill every silence, resolve every tension, chase every opportunity with desperate intensity. You will create the void with surgical precision, maintain the tension with calm confidence, and let her come to you. The difference is not subtle, it's radical. He who chases repels, he who attracts magnetizes. Imagine you're at a party or a bar. You notice someone you're interested in a few feet away. The atmosphere is charged with music, conversations, the typical nighttime social energy. She's with her friends, laughing, seemingly oblivious to your existence. The common man immediately starts planning his approach. He thinks about opening lines, how to impress, perhaps even mentally rehearses what he's going to say. When he finally approaches, he does so with that slightly tense energy, that anxious glint in his eyes that screams, "Please accept me." He talks too fast, laughs too loud, tries too hard. Before a minute passes, she's already signaling her friends to rescue her. But you apply the magnetic void. First, you make brief eye contact, just enough to register your presence, but not so much as to seem intense or threatening. You don't approach immediately. You wait. Perhaps you exchange a second glance, this time with a faint smile that appears and fades. You've created the first element of the void, curiosity without pressure. When you finally do approach, you do so with absolute calm, as if you have all the time in the world. You don't use memorized lines. You make a genuine observation or ask a simple question related to the present moment. Then, after her response, you introduce that 3-second pause. You maintain eye contact without intensity, simply present. The silence becomes magnetic. She feels the need to fill it, to elaborate, to justify or explain herself. And just like that, in less than 5 minutes, you've completely inverted the dynamic. She's working to impress you, not the other way around. You didn't conquer, you magnetized. You didn't chase, you attracted. Because he who creates the void controls the attraction. Now take this same principle to the context of dating apps or messaging. The fatal mistake 90% of men make is treating digital conversations like a job interview, where they have to prove their worth. They send elaborate messages, respond instantly, show excessive interest from the start. When you get a match or her number, you send a brief message, preferably related to something specific from the previous conversation. Nothing generic, nothing you could send to just anyone. After her response, you don't reply immediately. You create the digital void. When you do reply, you do so with messages containing open-ended but specific questions, requiring more than a simple yes or no. Never double text if she hasn't replied. Never explain your delay in responding. Keep your messages shorter than hers, especially at first. What's fascinating is seeing how she starts to invest more. Her replies become longer, more detailed. She starts asking questions, showing curiosity about you. Eventually, she's the one who suggests meeting in person, not because you manipulated her, but because you created a magnetic space that sparked her genuine interest. Power isn't in what you say, but in what you don't say, not in what you do, but in what you don't need to do. In the context of an existing relationship, whether new or established, the principle works with even greater precision. Imagine you've been dating for a few weeks or months. Most men make the mistake of becoming completely predictable, constantly available, overly emotionally transparent. You, on the other hand, maintain strategic elements of the magnetic void, even within the relationship. You're not available 24/7. You have parts of your life you don't share completely, not because you're hiding something, but because you maintain your individual identity intact. When she sends you an intense emotional message, you don't reply immediately with equal intensity. You create that brief void that increases anticipation. When you have a disagreement, you don't rush to resolve it or over-apologize. You maintain your center, your stance, your calm. The result is a relationship where she never takes you for granted, where attraction not only is maintained but grows over time. Not because you're playing manipulative games, but because you've understood a fundamental truth of human psychology. We value what we can't fully possess, what maintains an element of mystery, what requires effort to obtain. Depth attracts, superficiality repels, authenticity magnetizes. But beware, there are 3 critical errors when applying the magnetic void that can sabotage all your progress. The first error is confusing silence with coldness or indifference. The magnetic void isn't about being emotionally distant or appearing uninterested. It's about total presence combined with strategic space. If you seem bored, arrogant, or indifferent, she'll simply walk away. The correction is to maintain a warm, present energy while creating the space. Second error, inconsistency in application. Many men apply these principles at first, succeed in attracting someone, and then immediately revert to their old patterns of chasing and neediness. This creates a cognitive dissonance that she immediately perceives as a lack of authenticity. To avoid this, you must integrate these principles as part of your natural identity, not as techniques you use temporarily. Third error, the most subtle and dangerous, using the magnetic void from a place of manipulation or resentment. This principle only works when it comes from a place of internal abundance and genuine respect. If you apply it as revenge for past rejections or as a way to control, she will immediately detect that subconscious toxic energy. If you notice you're operating from that place, stop and recalibrate your intention toward authentic connection, not control. Now, all of this works perfectly on the surface, but there's a deeper, almost invisible level that separates those who merely apply techniques from those who truly master the inner game of magnetic attraction. The counterintuitive truth few men ever grasp is this: true seduction has nothing to do with what you do to others and everything to do with what you do with yourself. Most spend their entire lives trying to learn what to say, how to act, what techniques to use to attract others. But real magnetic, irresistible attraction has always been an inner job. Think about this. We all believe attraction works from the outside in. That if we say the right words, if we dress a certain way, if we follow certain strategies, we'll create attraction in others. This is the superficial layer everyone can see and most try to manipulate. But when you observe more deeply, you notice something strange. The most magnetic people are rarely the most technically skilled at seduction. Often, they're not even the most physically attractive. What they have is an intangible quality, a presence that cannot be faked. And this is where most stop analyzing, because the intangible seems impossible to cultivate. The truth is exactly the opposite. Attraction works from the inside out. Your internal state creates an energetic field that others can instinctively feel. It's not mystical or supernatural. It's profoundly psychological. When you internally need validation, when there's an emotional void you seek to fill with others' approval, you emit an energetic frequency of lack, and this frequency naturally repels. He who needs repels, he who cultivates attracts. Let me tell you something that transformed my understanding of this topic. Years ago, I met a man I'll call Robert. Physically, he was completely ordinary. Average height, slightly overweight, starting to go bald. He wasn't particularly rich, famous, powerful, or charismatic by conventional standards. And yet everywhere he went, the most beautiful women gravitated toward him like moths to a flame. Intrigued, I spent months observing him, analyzing what he said, how he moved, what techniques he used. But the more I observed, the more confused I became. He didn't do any of what the seduction experts recommended. He didn't use rehearsed lines. He didn't demonstrate social value. He didn't create artificial jealousy. Sometimes he even broke all the supposed rules. One day, after witnessing a model reject 3 attractive men to spend the entire night conversing with Robert, I finally asked him what his secret was. His answer changed my life. I have no internal void that needs to be filled by the validation of a beautiful woman. That's it. This is the truth no one wants to hear, because it can't be packaged into 10 foolproof tricks, or the secret line that always works. Magnetic attraction arises naturally when you've done the internal work of cultivating emotional fullness. Have you noticed how the most energetically needy people are precisely the ones who attract the least? How those who desperately chase relationships rarely find them? How paradoxically, when you finally stop searching, chasing, needing, that's when attraction begins to flow toward you naturally. Think of the last time you felt completely centered, perhaps doing something you love, completely absorbed in the moment, without worrying about impressing anyone. Do you remember that feeling? That inner peace, that connection with yourself. That state precisely is magnetic by nature. Why? Because there's no energetic lack, no emotional hunger, no need for external validation. So, how do you truly internalize this? It's not about memorizing a script, but about transforming your internal reality. When you truly understand that attraction is a side effect of your personal development, not its goal, something fundamentally changes in how you relate to others. You begin to cultivate your own fullness, not to attract, but because it's the only state worthy of inhabiting. You stop seeing every interaction as an opportunity to gain validation and start experiencing it as an exchange between 2 complete beings. Your energy becomes calm, centered, present, not because you're following a technique, but because it's your natural state. When you master this, you start to notice that you no longer need to chase connections. They come to you. You don't have to manipulate situations. You naturally flow with them. People feel a strange curiosity about you that they can't rationally explain. Situations that were once stressful now unfold with surprising ease. And most significantly, your worth is no longer tied to the response you get from others. True mastery isn't a perfected technique, but a cultivated state of being. The average man learns to act as if he has value. The master cultivates his internal value until any act becomes unnecessary. When you seek nothing, you attract everything. When you need no approval, you receive it abundantly. Now that you understand this fundamental principle, it's time to transform this understanding into a practical system. I'm going to give you 3 specific tools, a detailed 7-day plan, and the critical errors you must avoid to become a truly magnetic man. The first tool is called presence anchoring. It's a simple yet profoundly effective technique for cultivating that internal state of fullness that naturally attracts. Basically, it involves creating a psychological anchor for that state of total presence you occasionally experience naturally. You use it specifically when you feel yourself falling into patterns of neediness, when you find yourself chasing validation, or when anxiety starts to seep into your interactions. It works like this in detail. Identify a past experience where you felt completely present, confident, and centered, perhaps playing a sport, giving a successful presentation, or completely absorbed in something you love. Vividly recreate that experience in your mind, feeling the specific physical sensations in your body. Then, create a simple, discrete physical gesture, like pressing your thumb and index finger together, which you'll associate with that state. For example, when you notice you're starting to talk too fast or seek approval in an interaction, you discreetly perform your anchor gesture and take 1 deep breath. You immediately feel a shift in your internal state, a reconnection to your center. The effect is an instant return to your natural presence, and people around you perceive that subtle but powerful shift in your energetic field. The second tool is the revealing mirror. This technique allows you to create a magnetic void through strategic questions that reveal much more than they seem on the surface. It's not about interrogation or manipulative techniques, but about genuine curiosity expressed with surgical precision. Instead of asking typical superficial questions, what do you do? Where are you from? You learn to formulate questions that reveal deep values, motivations, and desires. For example, instead of asking, do you like your job? You ask, what are you most passionate about in what you do? Instead of, do you have siblings? You ask, how did your family influence who you are today? The crucial part is how you handle her responses. When she replies, you maintain that 3-second space, holding calm eye contact. You don't immediately jump to your similar story or the next question. That small void invites her to elaborate, to delve deeper, to reveal more. And with each revelation, the connection strengthens exponentially. The third tool is the investment cycle. This is possibly the most powerful of all because it completely inverts the traditional chasing dynamic. It consists of creating situations where she has to pursue you, where she has to earn your approval, where she has to demonstrate her worth. In practice, this means subtly setting high standards from the outset, not through explicit declarations, but through your consistent behavior. For example, when she does or says something that genuinely impresses you, you specifically acknowledge it. I love how you think about that, it's truly unique. But equally important, when she does something that doesn't resonate with your values, you don't feign approval out of fear of losing her. Gradually, she begins to invest more, to strive for your genuine approval, to reveal deeper layers of herself, not because you manipulated her, but because you created a space where real value is recognized and celebrated in both directions. He who chases loses, he who invests wins. Now let's build a strategic plan for the next 7 days that will transform these tools into a new reality for you. It's not theory, it's a specific action protocol. For the first 2 days, your sole focus is mastering presence anchoring. Don't try to apply everything at once. Simply identify and develop your personal anchor, and consciously activate it every time you notice yourself falling into patterns of neediness or seeking validation. This will happen multiple times each day. When you obsessively check your phone, waiting for her message, when you feel the urge to over-explain yourself, when you notice anxiety in a silence. In each of these instances, activate your anchor, breathe, and observe the internal shift. What you'll notice. On the first day, you'll feel a strange resistance, as if your brain is fighting against this new pattern. That's normal. By the second day, you'll start to feel moments of surprising clarity, brief instances where the neediness simply disappears. People around you will notice something different about you, though they won't be able to pinpoint exactly what it is. Pay special attention to how your body language changes when you're anchored versus when you're in chasing mode. On days 3 and 4, you add the revealing mirror while continuing your anchoring practice. Now you're operating with 2 tools simultaneously. In every social interaction, whether with someone you're attracted to or even in everyday contexts, practice formulating a revealing question, followed by that space of magnetic silence. You not only ask deeper questions, but you hold the space for the other person to elaborate, while remaining completely present and anchored. Here the game changes remarkably because you're simultaneously cultivating your internal state and creating an external magnetic field. You'll notice that people start to open up more with you, feeling inexplicably comfortable revealing things they normally wouldn't share. If you feel discomfort with silences, it's a clear sign you're on the right track. Adjust by slightly reducing the duration of silences at first, gradually increasing them as you become more comfortable with the tension. Days 5, 6, and 7 are for refining and integrating the third tool, the investment cycle, thus completing the system. Now you're operating with the complete integrated system. First contact situations, presence, anchoring for your internal state, deepening interaction, revealing mirror to create genuine connection, developing the dynamic, investment cycle to fundamentally transform the energetic structure of the relationship. Specifically observe how the energetic dynamic shifts, how people subtly begin to seek your approval, how traditional roles naturally invert. Adjust your level of acknowledgement based on the authenticity of their responses. If you notice resistance or distancing, it means you might be applying the investment cycle too intensely. Recalibrate toward more genuine warmth. At this point, you'll start to experience a new reality in your interactions. It's not imagination or self-deception. It's the measurable result of having transformed your internal energetic field and consequently all the dynamics around you. But pay close attention now, because there are three fatal errors that can destroy all the progress you've built. The first error is inconsistency between your verbal and nonverbal communication. You can say all the right words, ask all the right questions, but if your body, your eyes, your tone of voice convey neediness or insecurity, the effect will be the opposite of what you desire. It seems superficial, but it's profoundly destructive. It happens especially when you try to act confident, instead of genuinely cultivating it. The sign that you're falling into this is inexplicable physical tension during interactions, immediate consequence, dissonance that she perceives as a lack of authenticity, long-term consequence, reinforcement of the rejection pattern. The precise correction is to refocus on your true internal state, not on the external appearance of confidence. The second error is confusing the magnetic void with power games or emotional manipulation. This happens when you apply these tools from a place of resentment or desire for control, not from internal abundance. It manifests as secret satisfaction when you feel you have control, or when you see her chasing you. This toxic energy contaminates the entire magnetic field you've built. If you notice thoughts like "now she'll see," or "finally I have power," stop immediately. Recalibrate toward a now. Intention of genuine connection between two complete beings, not a dynamic of domination-submission. The third error, the most subtle and dangerous, prematurely abandoning internal work to focus exclusively on external results. Many men experience initial success with these tools and quickly forget that real power comes from internal change, not external techniques. They start measuring their progress by how many numbers they get or how many dates they land, not by their personal growth. The indicator of this error is the emotional roller coaster: euphoria with success, devastation with rejection. The correction is to constantly remember that the fundamental purpose is your evolution as a man, not the accumulation of conquests. He who seeks techniques finds temporary results. He who cultivates his being creates permanent transformation. So let's recap, but not as a boring summary. I'm going to give you the 4 pillars that now define how you operate in the world of authentic attraction. First pillar: the fundamental error isn't technical but energetic. Internal desperation for validation creates a repulsive field that no external tactic can overcome, costing you countless opportunities for genuine connection. Second pillar: the magnetic void technique completely reverses the traditional dynamic, creating strategic space, maintaining total presence, and allowing her to emotionally invest first, generating attraction instead of chasing it. Third pillar: true seduction is an internal work of personal cultivation, not a collection of external techniques. When you eliminate the need for external validation, you naturally emit a magnetic field that attracts effortlessly. Fourth pillar: the integrated system of presence, anchoring, revealing mirror, and investment cycle creates a complete architecture of authentic attraction that transforms not just your results, but fundamentally who you are as a man. These 4 pillars are not theory. They are practical architecture for personal transformation and authentic magnetism. And now you have the complete map. Internal abundance creates external attraction. Now comes your challenge, and it starts exactly within the next 24 hours. Not next week, not when you feel ready, within the next 24 hours. During this period, a situation will inevitably arise where you would normally fall into patterns of neediness or chasing. It might be a message you want to reply to immediately, someone you're attracted to whom you want to impress, or even a moment of rejection or indifference that would normally affect you deeply. When this situation appears, and you'll know exactly when because you'll feel that familiar anxious urge, I want you to apply presence anchoring exactly as I taught you, not a diluted or half-hearted version. The full, precise, and conscious version. You don't need to announce you're trying something new. You don't need to explain anything to anyone. That's the beauty of this work. It's completely internal. Simply activate your anchor, breathe consciously, reconnect with your center, and observe how the entire dynamic shifts. Because when you do this, 3 specific things will happen. You'll notice an immediate change in your physical and emotional state. You'll observe momentary confusion in the other person as she recalibrates to your new energy, and you'll experience for the first time the feeling of being truly present without needing results. This is your moment of truth, your chance to prove to yourself, not to me, not to anyone else, but to yourself, that this isn't abstract theory. It's a new reality you can consciously create, and after you do it, Come back here and share specifically how your internal experience changed. I want to know exactly how it felt to be in your center while the external world reconfigured around you. And now the password. Comment exactly this, word for word. Silence magnetizes, neediness repels. This isn't just a comment, it's a statement, a code among those who have truly understood. It shows that you're not part of the passively consuming masses, but among the magnetics. Men who have understood that true power doesn't come from external techniques, but from internal transformation. This is our password, our mutual recognition. I will read every one of these comments personally, and I'll know exactly who has grasped the essence and who simply skimmed over it. And since you've made it to the end, there's something I didn't mention today, intentionally. In the next video, I'll reveal the 48-hour protocol, the system that creates genuine psychological addiction in exactly 2 days. It involves a specific neurological mechanism that activates the same dopamine circuits as the most addictive substances known, and it explains why some people can create such intense connections in such a short time, while others spend years generating nothing more than indifference. But that's a topic for our next meeting. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. The next video will be out this Thursday at 8 p.m. Remember the magnetism we talked about at the beginning? Now you understand that it's not about superficial techniques or external manipulation. It's about cultivating an internal energetic field so powerful that attraction becomes the natural side effect, not the desperate goal. You no longer need to chase. You become the magnet. And when you become the magnet, the entire world begins to gravitate toward you by the immutable laws of human attraction. Silence has power. Your presence is the magnet. Now go and become the man you were always meant to be.